Hey everyone, and welcome back to another news alert. My name is Jimmy Boyd, and thank you so much for tuning into Boyd News. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel for more updates like this. And feel free to support me on Patreon or buy me a coffee. Links are in the description below the video. So, real quick before we jump into the news, just want to give a quick channel shout out to our very first Patreon supporter, Big V. Big V, thank you so much for supporting my work here on YouTube. As many of you know, I've been here on YouTube for just about coming up on 2 years now in January of 2026, and I'm pretty much full-time, so any support from all of you is greatly appreciated. Thank you so much, and again, a big shout out to Big V. Guys, let's jump into the news. We will start off with a very big report out of Russia's Moscow Oblast. As yesterday, Ukraine's military intelligence operatives destroyed a Russian fuel pipeline. Ukraine's Military Intelligence Directorate, also known as the GUR, reported that this pipeline supplies fuel for Russia's military. We've got this new update for you here on your screen. And it says Ukraine destroys crucial pipeline near Moscow in secret operation. Kiev claims its forces hit the Moscow Ring pipeline, also known as the Koltsovoy pipeline, in Moscow's Ramensky district, if I'm saying that right, destroying 3 lines that carried gasoline, diesel, and aviation fuel. So massive hits over here by Ukraine's military intelligence operatives, and you can see here in this picture a huge explosion. Apparently this was a sabotage operation, and explosives were planted on these pipelines, detonating them and completely destroying them. So I'll show you guys a new video that's coming out on X today regarding that. Also, other top headline news: Ukraine carried out a massive drone attack on Russia overnight. Some reports stating upwards of 500 drones, many crossing through the Belgorod Oblast. We have reports of major power blackouts in at least one district in Russia's Moscow region. Also, heavy fighting is still being reported in the Pokrovsk sector of the Donetsk region in southeastern Ukraine. We have information that Ukraine has started deploying special forces to the area and are conducting counteroffensives to aid in reopening supply lines to the city. Yeah, there's some crazy operations going on inside of the Pokrovsk sector. Again, in the Donetsk region, southeastern Ukraine, we know things are very crucial and critical down there right now. The Russians are claiming major advances, taking over the city, encircling it. Ukraine's coming out refuting that. We've been talking about that a lot over the last 24 to 48 hours. So we've got a lot to cover with this war update, guys. Let's go ahead and jump right into this. We'll hop on over here to X with Anton Gerashenko. It says Ukrainian Defense Intelligence has attacked the Koltsovoy oil pipeline in Moscow region on October 31st. All 3 lines of the pipeline used to transport gas, diesel, and aviation fuel have simultaneously and successfully exploded. The length of the main oil product pipeline, Koltsovoy, is 400 kilometers. Fuel for transportation by pipeline came from Ryazan, Nizhny Novgorod, and Moscow oil refineries. Note these are all refineries that have been attacked in the past by Ukrainian drones. And it says Koltsovoy was capable of pumping up to 3 million tons of aviation fuel, up to 2.8 million tons of diesel fuel, and up to 1.6 million tons of gasoline per year. It says glory, okay? So this is definitely going to affect the Russians with their operations inside of Ukraine, and especially up here in the Moscow region. As you can see down here in southeastern side of Moscow is where this took place, or the Moscow Oblast. We've got these explosives that have been placed on these several different pipelines. And then it switches quickly over to footage of the detonation and explosion of this pipeline. So absolutely massive hit. Still waiting for more details on how much damage it's going to do, but it sounds like it's going to inflict some pretty serious wounds to Russia's military capabilities, and it can make it difficult for them to fight inside of Ukraine with these losses. And again, we already know there's major fuel problems inside of Russia. This will only continue to make it worse, and especially affecting the Moscow region, considering this pipeline runs right through it. So crazy news there. Now Max 25 update from Drone Bomber, and take a look at this map, guys. Lately, over the past 3 or 4 days, we've been seeing some pretty crazy attacks onto Russia, haven't we? These maps are absolutely nuts. I mean, look at the amount of drones that were flying right through the Belgorod Oblast. You can't even see the Belgorod Oblast is completely covered by all these drones. Some people were saying upwards of 500 drones. The largest attack through the Belgorod region was ever recorded. You can see drones were just crossing through Belgorod, heading on up towards Moscow. Tula region was seeing some explosions overnight. Looks like drones were also heading to Ryazan. most of the reports we have is blackouts inside of Moscow overnight. So looks like a pretty heavy attack onto Russian positions and also targeting Moscow, the capital. Here's a video now. End strike. At this moment, Russia's Belgorod region is under massive bombardment by Ukrainian kamikaze drones. Russian Telegram channels are in panic, claiming that more than 500 Ukrainian kamikaze drones are heading toward their regions. Yeah, we got a 14-second clip. You're going to hear some explosions over here in the Belgorod region of Russia. Take a look.
Да, да, да. На нахуй.
All right, so not much we can see here. There was a flash in the sky, but we can definitely hear what sounds like a Ukrainian drone that was incoming and smashed into a target over here in the Belgorod Oblast of Russia. Not really sure exactly what was hit there just yet, but something got attacked by a Ukrainian drone. Let's keep moving. Ozen Defender, major power disruptions are being reported in Zhukovsky and throughout several other suburbs to the south of the Russian capital of Moscow following a large-scale attack tonight by hundreds of drones launched from Ukraine against military sites and energy infrastructure across the Moscow Oblast. So here's video footage coming out from the Zhukovsky district, southeastern side of the city of Moscow, the capital. Is one of the suburbs over there, and you can see completely blacked out. So it looks like Ukraine struck some sort of power plant or maybe an electrical substation over there, knocking out the power in this area. We've got multiple videos very similar to that. Here's another one. This one from Anonymous. Electricity failing in Moscow before the blackout. So check this out as well. Some people were walking through what looks like a park or something, and the lights are just kind of flashing everywhere. I don't want to roll this too long because I know some of you might be photosensitive to certain videos like that. But yeah, lots of flashing there coming from that park as clearly some sort of electricity problem here in the Moscow region with these attacks from Ukraine. Here's another one. LA Summer 1. Moscow region, Russia. Hello, darkness, my old friend. Suburban Zhukovsky is partially without power. Footage of it is being shared by social media users. The video shows high-rise buildings with no lights in the windows and dark streets without street lights. So take a look at this as well. Some people were using like spotlights, and also looks like somebody's messing around with one of these laser pointers over here as well because the power's out. There's nothing else for people to do. I mean, obviously it's nighttime, go to sleep, right? But clearly we can see the power knocked out over here. Very dark in these areas, no street lights or anything. Looks like a few people do have power in their apartments, but for the most part, power was knocked out to this district. So now moving on to Max 25, and he's got a date here. It says September 27, 2025, and here's a quote. A blackout will occur in Moscow if Russia threatens to cut off power to Kiev. Do you guys remember that? This was back just about a month ago. Zelensky was stating this, that if Russia were to knock out the power in Kiev, that Ukraine would cause some sort of blackout inside of the capital of Moscow, basically saying we will retaliate the same way you do to us. And we have been seeing a lot of power plants being attacked near the city of Kiev, the capital of Ukraine. Many times power outages are caused over there, even inside the capital. And, all across Ukraine in general, we're seeing a lot of energy sites being targeted. So I think this was Ukraine's response to all these energy sites being targeted. They're now starting to cause power blackouts inside the capital of Moscow and some of the suburbs. Now, NOL reports GUR head Kirill Budanov was spotted with his special forces en route to Pokrovsk. Reports yesterday, showed GUR troops landing near the city and claimed Budanov is personally leading the operation. While commanders aren't inside the city due to intense fighting and constant shelling, they are coordinating closely from nearby. Okay, so here's a picture of apparently a Ukrainian special forces, and then we've got Kirill Budanov, the head of Ukraine's GUR, their military intelligence directorate. So we're hearing that he's somewhere close to Pokrovsk right now as of yesterday, maybe even before that. This was a photo that was captured. Some people are saying this is right outside Pokrovsk, like the entrance to it. And then others are saying it's kind of like a city nearby named Pavlorad. So I can't completely confirm where this is at, but he's definitely close to the city of Pokrovsk right now and leading an operation with Ukrainian special forces to carry out raids and infiltrate behind Russian enemy lines inside the city and try to reopen supply lines. That's what we're hearing about today. Here's another report from N-Strike. According to Suspilne, yesterday in Pokrovsk, the head of Ukraine's military intelligence GUR, General Kirill Budanov, personally took part in a special operation alongside GUR assault troops who had been airdropped into the area. No further details about this special operation, whose main objective was reportedly to reopen the logistical routes blocked by infiltrating Russian sabotage groups, have been disclosed. Have been disclosed so far. Excuse me. So yeah, apparently he's directly involved with this, right alongside some of the troops that are being airdropped by helicopter. There's a video that was coming out yesterday, and I'll show you guys in just a moment. Here's some information now. War translated Commander in Chief Syrskyi stated Ukrainian forces are conducting a comprehensive operation to destroy and expel Russian forces attempting to infiltrate Pokrovsk, with no encirclement or blockade present. Combined groups from Special Operation Forces, Navy, SBU, HUR work alongside Armed Forces drone operators and assault units. The enemy is paying the highest price, while Ukraine holds Pokrovsk and Myrnarad and clears the Dobropilya salient. So this is a picture that was coming out also just in the last 24 hours, allegedly showing Commander Syrskyi, this Oleksandr Syrskyi, the commander of Ukraine's armed forces, holding some sort of military assessment here in the situation in Pokrovsk. And he could also be over there near the Pokrovsk sector right now as well. So things are very intense over there, lots of heavy fighting, and both sides really trying to either take the city or control the city. Obviously, Ukraine's still fighting for it right now. Again, this is down in the southeastern side of Ukraine in the Donetsk region. The city of Pokrovsk and Myrnarad is a very important position for the Ukrainians to hold on to. It's a huge transport and rail hub city, and Ukraine is heavily fighting and trying to retake positions that are being lost. Here's more info now. Max 25 stabilization measures are underway in Pokrovsk with the participation of the Special Operation Forces. That's according to RBC Ukraine. RBC Ukraine is a mainstream news outlet in Ukraine. And it says the information of Russian propaganda about the destruction of the military reconnaissance landing party and the encirclement of the city is another lie of the Russian occupiers. So this is Ukraine coming out and refuting many of the claims where the Russians are stating that they're encircling the city, that Ukrainian soldiers are trapped over there. And then also they're passing around a story right now where they're claiming that they destroyed a Ukrainian helicopter that was trying to infiltrate behind their lines. So again, kind of referring to this video that I'm going to show you guys, that's what RBC Ukraine was reporting. Here's that video now. I was a defender. Undated footage released recently by Ukraine's main Directorate of Intelligence, GUR, showing an American-made UH-60A Black Hawk being used for the insertion of special forces behind enemy lines near Pokrovsk in eastern Ukraine. So yeah, this video was coming out yesterday on X. We don't know exactly when it was recorded, but we can see what looks like a helicopter that was landed over here, most likely near Pokrovsk, and dropping off Ukrainian special forces. Some people, again, are saying this is behind enemy lines in the city of Pokrovsk, and these soldiers were deployed over here to help reopen supply lines that have been cut off, so that way they can get more troops and equipment back into the city, because the Russians have been infiltrating many different areas and cutting off supply lines for the Ukrainians. So that's very big news there. Huge operations ongoing inside Pokrovsk right now. That's some of the newest updates there regarding that. Here's one more. This one from Bliskovka. Pokrovsk, we hold it. Myrnarad, we hold it. There's no encirclement or blockade of cities. Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Syrskyi. So that's what he's reporting. They've got full control of Pokrovsk and Myrnarad. We'll take a look at this photo here in just a second. And it says the enemy continues to attempt to infiltrate residential areas and cut off our supply routes. A comprehensive operation to destroy and dislodge the occupiers is underway. We are doing everything we can to ensure logistics. So that's obviously the main problem, right? So there's only a few roads to be able to get equipment into here. I think it's this one right here. This is the Pavlograd Highway. Then there's another one that runs up north here. I think it's this road here too, that leads to Pokrovsk and also Myrnarad right here in this area. This is the Rodinsky Highway. So the Ukrainians are counterattacking. You can see in these areas try to hold the Russians back from cutting off this major supply route. And then obviously here, I think this road can be used also. But again, heavy fighting over here. You can see this is a map from Deep State showing Russian advances in some of these areas into the city of Pokrovsk. So the Russians are getting inside of Pokrovsk right now. That's what we are hearing. But Ukraine is refuting all the claims that, they're being surrounded over here. That is not the case, according to Ukraine's military and also the Military Intelligence Directorate, the GUR. Things are under control, but obviously the situation is critical at this time. So if we get more updates on the Pokrovsk sector, I'll give you guys another video later. Now, Max 25, a fire broke out on the territory of a gas production facility in Poltava region as a result of a Russian attack, State Emergency Service reports. Here's pictures coming out from this area. These were firefighters trying to put out the blaze on another gas storage facility that has been attacked, or gas production facility, excuse me, not gas storage. There might be some gas storage, but this is a production facility, and we know that the Russians have been striking a lot of these as well. Not only are they striking energy sites, but they're also destroying gas production facilities, and we know there is a lot of them in the Poltava region. So the Russians have been trying to destroy that as much as they possibly can. They're trying to force the Ukrainian civilians to suffer this winter. Okay, if they don't have power, they don't have gas. That means no heating, barely any power, and people are going to be suffering as it gets very cold over there during the winter time. So there's another report of gas production being attacked. Now, Anton Gerashenko, Russian ballistic strike on Mykolaiv this morning. One person killed, 15 more injured, a child among them. Gas station and vehicles damaged. Deepest condolences to all the victims. So we do have reports today of a Russian ballistic missile attack on the Mykolaiv region. That's going to be down in the southern side of Ukraine. We got a gas station that suffered some damage after this ballistic missile struck this area. Take a look at this video. All right, so gas station inside of Ukraine, obviously taking some damage here. But the worst part about this news is to hear about all these people that have been wounded and one person unfortunately killed in this attack. I'm actually surprised there wasn't more damage here from this missile attack. I'm not sure if the missile directly struck here on the location of this gas station or if it struck nearby, but hopefully the people that have been injured are receiving the proper medical care that they need. Very sad to hear about these victims today. Now, Max 25, Russia has officially included the occupied territories of Ukraine in the southern military district and will begin to mobilize the population, according to Natsprotiv. Russia plans to mobilize 50 to 100,000 people in the occupied territories for the war against Ukraine. The category of those involved includes men aged 18 to 55 and conscripts. Wow, imagine that. Imagine attacking another nation and then mobilizing that nation's people to fight against the nation that you're attacking. That's absolutely crazy to me. So yeah, this is being confirmed now. Apparently, the Russians are starting to mobilize more the residents in these occupied areas of Ukraine to fight against the Ukrainians. So expect to be seeing more Russian troops showing up on the front line. Is going to make it more difficult for Ukraine. Ukraine is fighting a lot of different resources right now, obviously, right? The Russian military, all these different mercenaries that are showing up. Pretty crazy what Ukraine is sustaining over here. Hopefully they can get the proper support they need to hold this back, but apparently potentially up to 50 to 100,000 people will be mobilized from these occupied areas here, this kind of pink shaded area of Ukraine. Okay, these are all occupied territories held by the Russians. Now from Tomi, have you noticed how not a single undersea cable has been cut since NATO increased its presence and surveillance in the Baltic Sea? The accident suddenly stopped. Okay, so I pulled this up because, yeah, we actually haven't talked about any underwater sea cables being cut in a very long time. If you guys remember, there was a string of events back towards the beginning of the year. There was just constant cables being damaged in the Baltic Sea. Many times there was reports that the Russians were doing this with their shadow fleet of vessels, dragging anchors, destroying underwater sea cables that connect many NATO nations with, electricity and also internet. All of a sudden, that has stopped ever since NATO increased their presence because they announced, I think it was called Baltic Sentry or something like that, some sort of mission to deploy more military reconnaissance aircraft and monitoring the Baltic Sea more heavily, even with the navies of multiple nations. Now we're not seeing that happening anymore. So isn't that interesting? Was this maybe actually Russia doing this, and now that they're not, now that they're conducting these surveillance missions and monitoring the Baltic Sea, now we're not seeing that happening anymore. So I thought it was interesting. This is something we haven't talked about in a long time, so I thought I'd bring that up today. Now, Max 25, G7 to help Ukraine restore power system after Russian attacks. The energy minister stressed that Russia's war against Ukraine seriously affects the country's energy security and poses a threat to the civilian population. The G7 reaffirmed unwavering support for Ukraine in defending its territorial integrity, freedom, and sovereignty and independence. So, yeah, the G7 countries released an actual statement today. It's a really long statement. We're not going to read it, but they were basically stating they're going to support Ukraine monetarily to help them restore their power grid due to all these Russian attacks. As we know, over the past few months, it's been very devastating inside of Ukraine. Many areas are starting to experience rolling blackouts, sometimes 8 hours at a time, sometimes even longer without power. And obviously, it's getting very cold over there, and this is exactly what the Russians want. So, G7 stepping up big, and those nations will be helping out Ukraine to restore their grid. Now, Visegrad 24, around 25 flights had to be diverted after the Berlin Brandenburg airport shut down operations last night. Several unknown drones have been observed in the airport's airspace. So here we go again. Drones being reported. I think yesterday there wasn't any reports. The day before there was. We had another nation, I forget which one it was, that was experiencing drones, but now Germany seeing drones again over the Berlin Brandenburg airport. So what's going on with these drone sightings, guys? If you guys have any information on this, let me know what you think down below, or share some information if you guys got anything on this. But these drones are still being spotted in the sky, shutting down airports across Europe, in this case Germany, overnight. So looks like that is not over with. It's still been going on for several months now. Now, Slava, France ready to supply Rafale fighters to Ukraine. France is signaling its readiness to supply Rafale fighters to Ukraine as Kyiv seeks to implement a 3-aircraft strategy based on the F-16, Gripen E/F, and Rafale to rebuild its fleet of 250 aircraft. Okay, so very good news here. France is ready to send these Rafale fighters over to Ukraine. Here's a picture of one of them right here. And Ukraine's going to be getting some major upgrades soon, right? So they're still going to be receiving F-16s. They're trying to get more of them from the United States. I think Belgium is planning to send more of them to Ukraine also pretty soon. They're moving towards getting these Gripen fighter jets also from Sweden. And then on top of that, these Rafale fighters from France. So in the next few years, if this war continues, or even if it doesn't, Ukraine's Air Force getting some major upgrades with a lot of these new different types of aircraft. So very good news to hear from Ukraine today. Now, end strike. During training exercises in France, an Interceptor drone produced by the French company Alta Aris, based on Ukrainian technology, successfully shot down a simulated enemy drone amid stormy and high wind conditions. Most of these France-manufactured Interceptor drones are intended for delivery to the armed forces of Ukraine. Wow, that's great news. So we've been hearing a lot about these Interceptor drones. Here's a picture of them right here. There's so many different types that are being produced in multiple nations. We know that the UK is helping out with a certain type of drone as well, just like what you see here. So France tested one, and it looks like it worked out very well. Even in intense, stormy, and high wind conditions, it was still successful in downing some sort of projectile or drone, right? So great news to hear that France is helping out Ukraine with these, and we know these are very effective at taking down a lot of Shahed drones that attack Ukraine. This is a very cheap and very quick to produce option to bring down a Russian drone. So great news to hear out of France. Also, now military news UA, the hottest destinations on the front: Pokrovsk, Vernoradny, if I'm saying that right, Vinoradny, Dobrapilya, Kupiansk, says Zelensky. Ukraine is preparing winter support for citizens, fixed prices for gas and electricity, assistance for the elderly, and free 3,000-kilometer of rail travel for every Ukrainian. Okay, so this was Vladimir Zelensky last night giving an update to the Ukrainian people. And he does this usually once per night and kind of gives some updates on the situation with this war. So apparently they're preparing winter support. They're going to be having fixed prices for gas and electricity. That's good, because obviously there's going to be a lot of problems with that right now. And then assistance for the elderly, free 3,000-kilometer of rail travel. That's great news also. But what's dangerous about that is obviously a lot of these railways are being attacked right now. So even though they're going to be offering some assistance for the elderly for free to travel, a lot of these are being attacked right now. So we talked about some of the areas of Ukraine, obviously, that are under heavy attack. These are the different regions. Obviously, in the Donbass is mostly where this is taking place at, but the Kharkiv region and also in the Donetsk regions of Ukraine, heavy fighting ongoing. Now, Ukrainian review preparatory work on the 20th package of sanctions and over 160 long-range attacks on the fuel infrastructure of Russia, the main points of Zelensky's address. So Zelensky was making some statements as well over the last 24 hours. We'll go over some of the things he stated here. It says today there are new sanctions decisions on over 50 people. Most are Russian individuals working for the war. The cabinet of ministers conducted preparatory work to synchronize the 19th package of EU sanctions in our jurisdiction. The Europeans are already preparing the 20th package of sanctions. The defense forces have inflicted over 160 long-range hits on the enemy's fuel infrastructure since the beginning of this year alone. Hundreds more operations have been carried out against their military machine. So it looks like Zelensky confirming a lot of different attacks inside of Russia. And on top of that, talking about these sanctions onto Russia as well. The EU is preparing their 19th package of sanctions and could be announced here very soon. We just talked about the 18th package that came out just in the last couple weeks, right? And then apparently they're already working on the 20th. So the EU is working very quickly and tirelessly to continue to put sanctions onto Russia and force them to end this war. So some very big statements here from Zelensky today. Let me know what you think on those. Now, military news UA, Bulgaria is seeking exemption from new U.S. sanctions on Russian oil companies, fearing the closure of the Burgas refinery owned by Lukoil and supplying 80% of the country's fuel. The government has warned of possible fuel shortages and unrest if operations are halted. So it looks like Bulgaria is very worried about these sanctions that the U.S. put onto Russia recently, onto Rosneft and Lukoil, two major oil and gas companies inside of Russia. So apparently they're going to be affected by this also. There's not a whole lot of time left. I think there's somewhere around like a few weeks or a couple months at the most. I can't remember, but apparently where a lot of these nations, even that are affiliated with some of these companies like Lukoil, even EU nations are being affected by this, because we know Hungary is trying to get around this as well. They've been trying to set up meetings between Viktor Orban and Trump to see if they can get an exemption on these sanctions also. And apparently Bulgaria is worried about that as well, and they're apparently warning that there could be possible fuel shortages and unrest if this were to happen, because 80% of the country's fuel is supplied through this refinery that's owned by Lukoil. So obviously this would be under sanctions as well. So Bulgaria is definitely worried about that. Here's another one. Marie Drutska, Orban's request for an exemption from U.S. sanctions on Russian oil has been denied. According to Trump, he has asked for an exemption. We haven't granted one, but he asked. Sounds like they have 3 weeks to switch to oil sources, as Samuel L. Jackson would say, TikTok. Yeah, TikTok to Hungary, they're in big trouble if they're not going to get an exemption from the United States. So this was Trump aboard Air Force One. And it says right there, he has asked for an exemption, but we haven't granted one, but he asked. That's pretty much Trump's response to a reporter asking about Hungary asking for an exemption to these sanctions, as obviously EU countries that are affiliated with these companies are going to be affected as well. So it looks like some major EU countries are under threat of having some major problems here with these new sanctions coming from the United States onto Russia. Now check this out, Evgen Istrebin. Loading of oil and petroleum products on Russian railways, October was down 4.1% year over year, and January to October down 5.3% year over year. So check out these charts. It says daily loading of oil and oil products by Russian railways by the thousands of tons. Okay, so look at all these other years. We got 2022, 2023, and 2024. And then the red is going to be 2025. Look at this chart just completely collapsing here, especially in September. Fell down to almost 500,000 tons. It came back up a little bit to 520 in October. But compared to previous years, look at how much less oil products are being loaded onto Russian railways. Here's another one, daily loading of oil and oil products by Russian railways by the 1,000 tons, okay? And notice right here in September of 2025 where it really dropped here, almost in line where back in 2020, wasn't this during the health crisis time, right? So back during those times when there was a major crash, you can see here this trend where the graph is completely going down here continuously, and this is due to Ukraine striking all these oil refineries as well. They're having a lot of export problems right now. Russia is under heavy stress, fuel problems as well. We know a lot of different oblasts inside of Russia are experiencing fuel shortages. So this whole oil crisis inside of Russia and fuel crisis is continuing to get worse. And even Russian railways are now starting to load less oil and oil products onto these trains to move them around the country and also probably get them ready for export. So crazy news there. Now, NOAA reports Russia launched 223 attack drones overnight, including around 140 Shaheeds from multiple directions. Ukrainian air defense shot down or suppressed 206 of them using aviation, SAMs, electronic warfare units, and mobile fire groups. 17 drones hit targets. So look at these numbers here, 206 drones out of 223 being destroyed. That was interesting. There's no reports of ballistic missiles being fired into Ukraine because we had that video of Mykolaiv coming under attack. So, but at least according to Ukraine's defense forces, 206 out of these 223 being destroyed. Very, very good numbers overnight. We didn't hear too many reports of drones striking cities, so that explains why a good majority were shot down or suppressed. Now, Kyiv Independent, these are the indicative estimates of Russia's combat losses as of November 1st, according to the armed forces of Ukraine. Now, our final update Russia's losses as of November 1st 900 troops, 2 AFVs, 58 vehicles and fuel tanks, 6 tanks, 9 artillery systems, 349 UAVs, 1 multiple launch rocket system, 2 anti aircraft warfare system, and 1 special equipment. So lots being reported destroyed today. We got a special equipment here once again, 2 anti-aircraft warfare systems. Very big hits there. Those could be anywhere from like 20 up to $60 million a piece, depending on the anti-aircraft warfare system destroyed. And then also multiple launch rocket system. Good to see here. And artillery systems very low. We've been seeing these numbers really fluctuating a lot. Sometimes they're very low, sometimes very high. Tanks and AFVs, still pretty low numbers here. Vehicles and fuel tanks jumping off the cliff big time today. We've been seeing about an average 120 to 150 there for probably over a week or so. And overnight, only 58 being destroyed here. And then troop losses, I'd say about average numbers here. We've been seeing right about 900 for a given time now. So guys, I want to thank you so much for tuning in for today's update on November 1st, 2025. And I hope you guys all have a great day out there. Take care and be safe. Let me know what you think about all these details down below in the comment section. That's going to be it for today's update. If you got something out of this, please smash that like button. Also, if you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing down below. Hit the notification bell. That way YouTube can notify you. And with that, hope you all have a great day. Everybody take care and God bless. And we'll see you in the next one.